Okay, so have you heard about this piece of land in Barrantes de Flores?
Yeah, I think I saw something about it.
It's almost 40,000 square meters,
Wow.
and the matricula is 123554-00.
Okay, I've got that.
So they're thinking of doing like a mixed-use development there. Some residential, some commercial.
Sounds interesting. Have they done any, market research on it?
Yeah, that's what we're looking at today, actually.
Oh, cool.
So there's this report called Propiedad Flores.pdf.
Got it.
We're going to try to pull out the big takeaways, the key insights
Yeah.
to see if this thing really has legs.
Okay. So what's the zoning like there? Would that even allow for mixed use?
That's the interesting part. It seems like it does.
Oh, wow.
The zoning falls under ZEUBD, that's low-density urban expansion,
Okay.
and also ZUCR, which is urban commercial residential.
So it's like they're almost setting it up for this kind of project.
Yeah, right.
That's cool. So what's the report say about the area?
Well, first of all, there are one of people there.
Oh, yeah. Like how many are we talking?
By 2025, they're projecting over 280,000 residents.
Wow.
Within a 3-kilometer radius of the property.
That's a huge potential customer base right there.
It is. And what's really interesting is 39% of them are between 20 and 44 years old.
Okay, so like prime working age, maybe starting families.
Exactly. So you're not just talking about a crowd. You're talking about people who are probably looking for,
Yeah.
a place to live, to settle down.
Yeah.
And also the report mentions that Flores itself has higher than average education levels.
Oh, really? Interesting.
So what does that tell you?
I mean, it could mean that they're looking for, more than just the basics.
Right.
Maybe they want specific amenities. Maybe they're willing to spend a bit more.
Yeah, maybe more discerning customers.
Yeah, exactly. What are we talking about in terms of actual numbers for education?
So about 14% of residents in the area have a university degree, but in Flores itself, it's even higher.
Wow.
17%. That's above the GAM average, which is only 12.5%.
Huh. So there's definitely a concentration of potentially higher income earners there.
Potentially, yeah. Okay, let's talk about jobs.
Okay.
The economically active population in the area is over 117,000 people.
Okay. And are those people mostly working locally?
That's what's really interesting. The report says there's a strong tendency for people to work within Heredia itself.
So shorter commutes. That's got to be appealing.
Yeah, and they're more likely to, spend their money in the local economy.
Right, supporting those local businesses.
Yeah, and the report gives us a breakdown of the sectors.
Oh, yeah. Like what kind of jobs are we talking?
So the biggest one is services, 35%. Then industry and manufacturing at 22%.
Okay.
And commerce at 21%. So you've got a good mix there.
Makes sense for an area with, free trade zones and some corporate offices.
Yeah. Now think about this. Almost half of the households in the area are 3 or 4 people.
Wow. So that's a lot of families.
Right. And another 20% are 2-person households, so probably couples.
So you've got to figure out what kind of housing they need.
Exactly. And are they looking for housing?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
The report says that by 2025, there's going to be a need for almost 1,900 new housing units every year.
Wow.
Within that 3-kilometer radius.
Yeah.
And specifically in Flores, they're projecting a demand for 136 new homes.
That's pretty significant, especially for that specific area.
Yeah. Now let's talk about quality of life.
Okay, quality of life. Everyone wants that. What does the report say?
The social development index for Barrantes is really high.
Oh, really?
It's 94 out of 100, 6th best in the whole country.
I mean, that says a lot, right, about healthcare education.
Right, and the estimated monthly income for the whole area is $364 million US.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so there's money there.
It's not just spread out evenly, though.
Oh.
11 out of the 17 districts in the area are in the highest income quintile.
So there are definitely some pockets of affluence in that area.
Yeah, and the report actually gives you IDS rankings for key districts.
Oh, cool. Which ones?
La Asunción, San Joaquin, Barrantes, a few others.
And how do they compare?
They're all really high.
So that overall high IDS isn't misleading.
Nope. And the report even gives you average income for each district in colones and in US dollars.
Nice.
And the number of households. So you can really start to see the different segments within the market.
That's a lot of data. What about the qualitative stuff? Did they talk to people in the area?
Oh, yeah. They did field work and interviews.
Okay, cool.
And one thing that came up was the noticeable urban growth.
Makes sense with the population numbers we were looking at.
Yeah, and they're seeing more and more condominium living.
Okay. Where specifically?
Especially in places like San Joaquin and San Lorenzo.
Maybe people want that condo lifestyle.
And the report mentions that the area is perceived as being very safe.
Yeah, that's a huge selling point for families.
Definitely. Now, when they asked residents about commercial needs, they said they basically have access to necessities.
Okay, so the basics are covered.
But they want more entertainment and higher-end retail options.
So, like, if they want that kind of stuff, what do they do now?
The report says they're going to malls like Oxígeno or Paseo de las Flores.
Oh, okay, so they're traveling outside the area.
Yeah, and that seems like a big opportunity, right?
Yeah, if you could offer that right there in the development,
Right.
you have a built-in market.
A captive audience, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Did they talk about what people liked about the area in general?
Yeah, in the interviews, a few things came up consistently, like
Yeah.
the feeling of safety, which we already mentioned,
Yeah,
lots of job opportunities, especially in the free trade zones,
okay. And those are usually pretty good jobs.
and also being close to Route 1 and the airport.
Yeah, access to transportation is key. What about the downsides? There's got to be some, right?
They mention a few things: increased temperatures
Makes sense. A lot of development means less green space.
and traffic.
Yeah, that comes with the territory.
But they also said there's a lack of recreational spaces.
Oh, interesting.
Although the report suggested that new developments could help address that.
Yeah, if you include things like parks or green spaces in your project.
Exactly. Now, this is important.
Okay?
The fieldwork also uncovered something crucial about water.
Oh,
Apparently, in Flores, each sector often has its own water supply infrastructure.
oh, wow. So it's not all connected.
It sounds like it. And the report makes it clear the developer would be responsible for any upgrades or expansions to the water infrastructure.
And any other municipal infrastructure costs, probably.
Yeah, so that's a big factor to consider in the budget.
For sure. It's not just the construction costs.
Right. Now, to give you a sense of the people they talked to,
Okay.
one resident, Natalia Mora, said she loves how much the area has grown but still feels safe and convenient.
Sounds like she's happy with how things are developing.
Yeah. And then there's Monica Hofmeister. She's the director of urbanism for Flores.
Okay, so she's got the inside scoop.
She talked about the trend towards house condominiums and the growing interest in low-rise apartments.
Interesting. And I bet she knows about those commercial opportunities, too.
Oh, yeah, she specifically mentioned the lack of retail options near the property for all those residents.
So that confirms what we saw in the data.
Yep. They also talked to Sebastian Solano, another resident.
Okay. What did he have to say?
He wants more recreational facilities, things like music schools or parks.
So there's that need again.
And he said for fast food, everyone goes to Oxígeno Mall.
So they're definitely leaving the area for some things.
Then there was Jose Uribe. He works in one of the free trade zones.
Okay.
He was really positive about the job opportunities there.
So it's providing jobs for local people.
It seems like it. Now, beyond the interviews, they did surveys too.
Oh, cool. Larger scale data.
Yeah. And when they asked about preferred housing types, horizontal house condominiums and low-rise apartment condominiums were the most popular.
Low-rise meaning?
3 floors or less, under 40 units.
Interesting. Not a lot of love for high-rises.
It seems not. What do you think that means?
Maybe people want more of a community feel, less density.
Right.
More green space, maybe?
Maybe. And they might also be thinking about the airport.
Oh, right, height restrictions because it's so close.
Yeah. Now, the number one thing people valued when choosing a home was security.
No surprise there. It's always top of mind.
And then it was proximity to work, parking spaces, and unit size.
Okay, so convenience and practicality.
For sure. And when they asked about amenities,
What were people looking for?
guess.
I'm going to say security features were probably up there.
You got it. Security and access control were the most important.
Makes sense. And then maybe green areas.
Yeah, green areas were high on the list, too.
Interesting. Anything else?
Not really. Things like co-working spaces, pools, BBQ areas, they weren't as important.
So focusing on the essentials.
Seems like it. Now, this is interesting.
Yeah.
They asked about maintenance fees for house condominiums.
Oh, the dreaded fees. What did people say?
Most people said they'd be okay with somewhere between 60,000 won and 120,000 colones per month.
Okay, so there's a limit.
There is. And remember, the developer is likely going to be covering the water infrastructure upgrades.
Right, so those costs have to be factored in somehow.
Exactly. Then they asked about who the likely buyers would be.
Okay, interesting. So not just what they want, but who wants it.
Right. And most people said it would be families and couples looking to live there, not investors.
So people who are actually going to live in the units.
Yeah, not just rent them out.
Okay, so that kind of changes the approach.
How so?
Well, you're not just selling an investment, you're selling a lifestyle.
Right.
You've got to focus on what families and couples want.
Exactly. What about pricing?
Let me guess they asked about that too.
They did. For a house in Flores, most people said a reasonable price would be between 200,000 won and $300,000.
Okay, so that gives you a target.
And for rentals, most people thought $1,000 per month or less was appropriate.
Okay, so there's a range there for you to consider.
Now let's talk about commutes.
Okay, how are people getting to work?
Over half of the people surveyed work in Berlin, Flores, or the surrounding areas.
Okay, so a lot of local jobs.
But a lot of people also have long commutes.
Like how long?
A significant portion commute for 30 to 60 minutes each way,
Yeah, that's rough.
and 39% commute for over an hour.
Wow, that's a lot of time on the road.
Most people go into the office 3 or 4 days a week, though.
Oh, okay, so a hybrid model. That's pretty standard these days.
Yeah, and when asked why they would want to change residence, the main reasons were a change of job or needing more space.
Makes sense. Life changes, you need a different place to live.
And a lot of the respondents work for multinational companies.
So that's a specific demographic.
Yeah. And just to give you an idea of the typical respondent,
Okay.
they were about 35 years old, mostly married or in a common law relationship, and had an average household size of 3.
Okay, so that lines up with what we saw earlier.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, last thing.
Okay.
They asked about the most reliable sources of information for residential projects.
So how are people finding out about this stuff?
Social media ads, billboards, and TV ads were considered the most trustworthy.
Okay, so traditional media still plays a role.
Yeah, and then recommendations from real estate agents and word of mouth.
So personal connections still matter.
They do. So what does all of this tell us?
I mean, it paints a pretty clear picture, doesn't it?
What do you see?
This area has huge potential. You've got a growing population with money to spend, $364 million a month. That's a big market. Flores itself is densely populated, and there's a lot of local economic activity happening in Heredia. The fact that Flores is expanding tells you it's a desirable place to be, and the existing housing seems to be geared towards a higher income segment, which is good news for this project.
What about the challenges?
Well, traffic is definitely a concern. Belen and Flores can get pretty congested.
Right.
And of course, the water infrastructure is a big one. The developer's going to have to cover those costs, and that could be significant. But on the plus side, people seem really happy living there.
There's a strong sense of community.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the takeaway? What should someone considering this development do?
The report has some really good recommendations.
Yeah. Like what?
Well, first of all, take advantage of that high population density and the demand for housing.
Okay, so build those residential units.
And don't forget the commercial aspect. That mixed-use approach seems like a winner.
Especially with the lack of local options.
Exactly. Focus your marketing on families and couples. They're the ones driving demand.
And price it right.
Yeah. $200,000 to $300,000 for families, maybe $100,000 to $200,000 for couples.
And keep those maintenance fees below $120,000 colognes.
Right. People are price sensitive. And don't skimp on security. That's a top priority for residents.
Yeah, make it a selling point.
Definitely. Highlight the proximity to key areas, jobs, transportation.
And use digital marketing. That's where people are getting their information.
Oh, and one more thing.
Yeah.
Make it unique. Don't just build another cookie-cutter development.
Figure out what this market really needs and give it to them.
Exactly.
So all in all, it sounds like a great opportunity. There's a real need for new housing in Brontes de Flores, and this property seems perfectly positioned to meet that demand.
But you have to be smart about it. Understand the market, address those infrastructure challenges, and offer something special.
Yeah, something that enhances the quality of life that people already love there.
Exactly.
So for everyone listening, think about it. What could this development bring to Flores that's not there already? What are those hidden needs that this project could fulfill? Because that's where the real success lies.